Hi, this is Christina Singh, and I'm filing the fifth edition of the Right News. And in this edition, I've done a lot of homework on whistleblowers and the corruption that exists in this country. It is really heartrending because many of these people are senior officials, and what they have done is in the interest of justice. And for many of them, they face serious life imprisonment and some of them even death threats. So I'm going to highlight a few of them. And in the description below in this YouTube video, you can actually see the links for each of these cases and you can follow them online and in the media as well. So let me just start with the first and most recent case, which is the case of Serene Teffaha, the lawyer who is in Melbourne and is at this present moment fighting prosecution for her defense of abuse victims, victims of domestic violence, as well as she is filing uh, class action for people who have been unjustly detained, people who have been coerced into leaving their jobs because of not wanting to receive a vaccination and for not wearing masks. So she has amassed hundreds of these applications and she was intending to file them. She has filed one set of class actions for victims of a detention lockdown in the detention towers. That has been submitted, and there are still more lawsuits pending. But she has been stripped of her legal practice, and so she can no longer practice as a lawyer. She has also been told that she is now muzzled and gagged, and she can no longer represent her or advocate for her clients. There are thousands of her clients, and not a single one of them has issued any complaints against her. So, really, there is lawful detention. Um, in fact, corruption at its core, what they are trying to do to this very brave lawyer who is speaking out for hundreds and if not thousands of people. So that's the first case, and that is ongoing. And the second case, which is recent, it's not exactly a case of a whistleblower, but this is Christine Holgate, who was in the limelight because of being stood down, or actually, Scott Morrison told her to resign and asked her to stand down, and if she did not want to stand down, that she should leave. And what has this CEO of this $7 billion organization done? But she has, in her 3 year tenure, basically turned the organization around and is one of the most highly sought after senior or chief executive officers and was listed, I think, in the Australian Financial Review as one of the top women CEO executives. So under her tenure, she basically saw the organization grow 7% and record revenues of 7.5 billion. So profit before tax rose up by 30%, up to 53.6 million. And this was after she was given a target of 15 million. So she has more than achieved her target. And she has actually saved the organization 281.1 million in terms of business efficiency. So this is a lady who has remarkably done amazing work at the Australia Post. And in fact, what she has been stood down for was allegations that she was corrupt. It was alleged that she was corrupt because she had given four executives four Cartier watches, so watches worth $5,000 each to each of the executives. But this was because they had secured a $220 million investment into business at Post and saved thousands of licensees from going bankrupt. And in fact, she has also protested against a report that was a review done by the Boston Consulting Group into the organization. This was an inquiry that came out with a report to say that Australia Post should be privatized. But Christine Holgate stood against this because she saw what had happened in the UK with the post office there, and this action in the UK had actually decimated the post offices there, and it sent it into the red. So of course she would not want something like this to happen to the local post office, and in fact it is a much sought after services, especially by those in people in the regional areas. So there is a fantastic track record, and there's no reason why this woman should be stood down and been told to resign. And of course she has resigned, but it was not after severe mental stress to the point where she was actually suicidal. So people who actually stand up for the truth have their lives threatened. And I will actually now go into another case. This is the case of Andrew Wilkie. So he is currently a member of parliament for Denison. Andrew Wilkie was a high-level intelligence officer, and in 2003 he actually was put into a position where he was doing intelligence on whether or not Australia should go and help out in the Iraq war. And so this was during the time of Osama bin Laden, and the allegation was that the Al-Qaeda was racking up huge military reserves. And what Wilkie found out was this was not the case. And in fact, there was actually reports to show that there was no such military buildup. And so Wilkie was vindicated because there was a report known as the Chilcot Inquiry that has vindicated him and shown that what he alleged was actually correct. But because of his calling out of this situation, he was dismissed from his position, so lost a good job, and as a result of it, he was mentally stressed and his marriage broke up. And that is again the cost of what whistleblowers suffer in this country. And just as a point of note, it's interesting that in the US there is something called the Whistleblowers Day, where they celebrate whistleblowers as shining beacons of truth. But in this country, where we're supposedly a democracy, whistleblowers are served life sentences. So let me now recount the case of another person also facing court charges. That's witness K and his lawyer Bernard Collieri. So witness K, he has no name. It's because he was then a spy working in the Australian Secret Intelligence Services. And he was actually in charge of bugging the officers of the Timor-Leste cabinet. And he was told to do that because at that time there was discussion with Timor-Leste and Woodside, as well as ConocoPhillips and a couple of other agencies, over the rights to a section of the Timor-Leste oil and gas reserves. So of course this is a very lucrative business, and the bugging was done so that Australia could understand how to negotiate for the deal. So of course that was highly unlawful, and witness K came out and revealed that this was the case. So he called on the services of Bernard Collieri, his lawyer, and the two of them are now facing life imprisonment. So once again, truth and the reverse has happened to them. They are facing life imprisonment. The next case is Jeff Morris. So Jeff Morris was a financial planner, and in 2008, what he saw was gross misconduct by the financial planning institutions. Hundreds of cases where they were basically illegally taking money from their clients. And Jeff Morris saw case after case of these people that were robbed of their life savings. And so he called this out, but not before he turned to internal avenues, but he was refused, and he was basically ignored. So he then went to the media, and as a result of him calling this out, it actually led to a Senate inquiry, and from there to a royal commission, a royal banking commission in 2019. But that is not the end of it, because the findings of that commission was like a toothless tiger. So once again, we have someone who was brave, and poor Jeff Morris, as a result of calling out these irregularities in the financial sector, his marriage broke down, and again he was under severe mental stress. And there you have it. If you dare to stand out for truth, you risk losing your job, you risk losing your marriage, you risk losing your health. I then go to the case of David Mcbride. David Mcbride was a former defense lawyer, and from 2014 to 2016, he made available information on alleged war crimes in Afghanistan by 39 of our Australian Defence Armed Forces. And basically, these soldiers were asked by their superiors to kill civilians, Afghan civilians, unarmed Afghan civilians. And these acts of cruelty was done so that the soldiers could learn how to let out blood. It's disgusting, it's horrifying, but this was what happened. And as a result of David Mcbride calling this out once again, he of course went through the internal avenues, but at every turn was ignored. And in the end, he went to the ABC in 2017, and ABC did a program on it. Right now, the poor man is also facing life imprisonment. So, another person in the books of our whistleblowers and our whistleblowing community who is facing life imprisonment for doing something that was right. The last case is a young man by the name of Richard Boyle. Richard Boyle was a tax employee in the Australian Tax Office. And in 2018, he found out that the tax office was corrupt because they were using something known as a garnishee order, where it allows the tax office to take or to rob taxpayers of huge amounts of money without any legal right. So it's an abuse of power. And Richard Boyle, after he saw this, and he colluded actually with a few of his colleagues, and they decided to make this public. And once again, it fell on deaf ears. And so he decided actually to blow the whistle. And this poor man, who is in South Australia, now faces, listen to this, a total of 161 years in life imprisonment. That's worse than someone who is a serial killer and a murderer. Life imprisonment for calling out on corrupt practices within the Australian Tax Office. So, folks, I am left speechless, because the more that I uncovered, the more it became clear to me that at every front in our government, in all of our government agencies, from the Australia Post Office to our defence system, our law enforcement system, the Australian Federal Police that are now, in the case of Serene Teffaha, they are colluding with the Victoria Legal Services Board So where do we turn? Because it seems and it appears to be that every single government agency is corrupt. It leaves you and me, the common man, to have absolutely no cause to turn to, no channel to turn to, if we decide to speak the truth. And that is why I totally and firmly believe that we need voices in Parliament who will bring these out. And thankfully, there are people like Andrew Wilkie, who of course now speaks out on behalf of Whistleblowers. Another senator is Rex Patrick. And you have also people like Pauline Hanson. So we need more politicians who will stand for the truth. And we also need, of course, grassroots support. So people like you and me who can share information like this as broadly as we can so that people are aware and know that if the government is able to lie in one agency, what gives us the trust that they will not lie in other agencies? And so there you have it. The corruption is rife, the corruption is deep. We are living in a so-called democratic society. I think not. I would love to hear your comments and your views. And I do hope that you will share this because more people need to know how corrupt this country is. Thanks for watching.